It's a pleasure to be talking about the winner of the Outstanding Case Writer Competition Hot Topic Responding to Shocks category at the Case Centre Awards and Competitions 2022. The winning authors were Malay Krishna from SP Jain Institute of Management and Research and Gurasimran Gambhir, now with Deloitte, but at that time in writing the case, she too was a student at SP Jain working with Malay. The title of the case is Zoom Video Communications, Flash in the Pandemic or Enduring Success. I'm delighted to be joined by one of the authors, the lead, Professor Malay. Welcome. This is the first award for SP Jain Institute of Management and Research. Congratulations again. And we're all so familiar with Zoom these days that in fact we're talking today via Zoom. And we so quickly have taken it from a position of absolute novelty to being part of our everyday working lives. So let me ask you to set the scene by perhaps telling us a little bit about what the case is about and who is the protagonist.
Richard, as you rightly pointed out, is about Zoom video communications, which became so popular in 2020 and beyond. Um, the protagonist of this case is Eric Yuan, and he's really wondering about what's going to happen after vaccines are rolled out. The timing of the case is December of 2020. Many of the countries have announced emergency use authorization of vaccines. And there seems to be a glimmer of hope, light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. And for the pandemic, but for Zoom, the question is, can it still stay relevant in a post-pandemic world? So Eric is debating that, and he's already setting in motion some plans, some ideas, and thinking through options on how to invest, what to prioritize uh, to enable continued success for Zoom.
It's a fascinating area, but one of the things that I always wonder in cases that have been written in response to the competition category is what was the stimulus for writing it? Did you write it in response to the hot topic, or were you stimulated by a need in your own teaching?
That's a great question. And I have to say, it was mostly something that I thought might be interesting to use in class. So for teaching, and really the genesis of the case study came about through my co-author, Gursimran. Uh, she had reached out to me as she was close to finishing the credits at SPJMR and having just realized that her uh, placement offer had been actually deferred to a couple of months. So she had some time and she reached out to me to say that, she'd like to write a case with me. And we were debating between this case on Zoom, writing that together, versus something related to a food delivery business in India. And Gursimran felt strongly about Zoom because it had so transformed our lives. So she was keen on uh, focusing on that topic. So it was certainly hot for her, and I certainly felt very excited about the opportunity to take it to a class, if, of course, we could bring it to fruition. So it was, um, in hindsight, that the case was submitted for competition, uh, and to our very pleasant surprise, it managed to win. But it was really meant for the classroom.
And how's it been playing in the classroom? What level does it play at? Does it play better with executives or MBA students? What's the response been like?
Mostly we use this in our 2-year program, classic master's program, and it does very well when we want to talk about sustainability of competitive advantage. So you've created competitive advantage, which many cases talk about. but how can you make sure it's an enduring success, that advantage? So there's a module on that, and it fits beautifully. Now, while we have taught it a couple of times now in our master's level program, we've also used it for executive education, sort of open access, open panel exec ed, if you will. And it's done surprisingly well there as well. What I found surprising is how just the analysis of competitive advantage immediately caused executives to start thinking about ideas for Eric Yuan to extend that advantage. So, I, I really enjoy cases, teaching cases that create a lot of interaction in class. And this case, even when taught on Zoom, especially, I guess, because it is a case on Zoom, it really created a lot of interaction between the participants and myself and the participants. So certainly fulfilled those goals of mine.
Oh, that's terrific to hear, especially that it plays so well on Zoom. Really, really great. Um, I want to end by something of a more technical question about how the writing process. Now, I know that in writing this case, you made use of the Tetra threat framework. Um, could you say why it applies particularly well to the circumstances of this case and why you came to use it?
So the Tetra threat framework is um, we also call it the 4D framework, and essentially it can be broken down into uh, threats to a company's value add, or the sort of unique value add it creates in an ecosystem of suppliers and customers and competitors, substitutes as well, and value appropriation. So these threats are to either the value add of the company or its ability to appropriate the value it has created for itself, appropriate that value created for itself. This is part of the strategy literature. Um, the I think the interesting granularity of this framework, creating both these four threats related to these two broad categories of company activities, is what makes it so valuable, as well as uh, lots of mitigation that the company can employ. So, for instance, to counter the threat of imitation from Cisco WebEx, from the likes of Google and Microsoft, their Teams and uh, Google Meet products, what strategies that Zoom could be seen to employ included upgrading to a large part. So they kept upgrading their product in surprisingly fast time cycles. So this creates a lag effect. Similarly, when it came to substitutes, this was actually at the heart of sustainability. So while they seem to have a handle on staying one step ahead of imitators, the biggest substitute for Zoom meetings is in-person meetings. And how do you thwart a threat of substitution? So you could do something like Zoom is trying to do, which is uh, recombining, recombining the best aspects of uh, technology-driven remote meeting and in-person meeting. And they're doing it very innovatively through alliances and recombining features of their own product, which is mainly a software and technology-enabled, cloud-enabled software service, as well as hardware. Uh, so very novel combinations in this recombining as a strategy. But you can use other strategies as well, including things like straddling. Um, so we talk about those possibilities in the case, and the nice thing is that not only can you observe Zoom doing, uh, you know, attacking the threat or countering the threat of imitation, countering the threat of imitation through various approaches, uh, countering the threat of substitution, the threat of slack and hold up through different approaches. But you can also suggest that in a post-pandemic world, what should it do when the pandemic is finally behind us? Uh, what other unused options could Zoom exercise? So while the framework is usually used in the rear view mirror, analyzing a company's threats and analyzing what it has done, observed to have done. You can also use it, which I think I have not seen it being used before, in a kind of prospective manner, a forward-looking manner, and saying, well, they've not done this. Why don't they try this? And what would that look like? What would this kind of a strategy, for instance, look like for Zoom? What investments should it make to make those strategies manifest?
That's been a terrific conversation, Malay. Thank you. Congratulations again on your award. And I look forward to further conversations in future.
Thank you so much, Richard. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.